The shadow of the pine forest lengthens, swallowing the last faint light of a dying sun. Inside a concealed nest beneath the roots of an upturned oak, a German marksman adjusts his optic, motionless, breathing through his nose to keep the telltale plume of condensation from betraying his position. He is a predator of the eastern and western fronts, a quiet killer trained to control the battlefield from hundreds of meters away. But as twilight turns to deep night, the hunter becomes the hunted. From the dark, quiet gloom of no man's land comes a sound that chills his blood, not the rumble of armor or the whistle of incoming artillery, but the soft, deliberate crunch of boots approaching with terrifying speed and total familiarity with the night. British combat patrols are moving through the dark, unseen, lethal, and hunting specifically for him. Why did the most feared marksmen of the Third Reich abandon their posts and refuse to engage British patrols after dark? What turned the deadly silence of the night into a trap the Germans desperately tried to avoid? In the brutal arithmetic of the Second World War, the German sniper held an almost mythical status on the battlefield. Trained at elite marksman schools like those in Zossen or through battlefield experience on the Eastern Front, these shots were masters of concealment, patience, and ballistics. Equipped with precision Mauser Kar-98K rifles fitted with high-powered ZF-42 optics, a single German marksman could pin down an entire Allied platoon for hours, turning every hedgerow in Normandy or ruined block in the Netherlands into a killing ground. They were taught to see without being seen, to strike from impossible distances, and to use the terrain as both shield and weapon. For the regular infantry officer advancing through contested ground, the sudden crack of a high-velocity 7.92mm round was the ultimate nightmare, an unseen death against which there seemed to be no immediate defense. Yet, for all their technical superiority and ice-cold discipline, German snipers operated under a fundamental tactical assumption that they dictated the terms of engagement. They chose the hide site, calculated the windage, identified high-value targets like officers or radio operators, and slipped away before retaliatory mortar fire could pinpoint their position. This dynamic held true throughout the daylight hours across every theater of Western Europe. Under the bright sun, the German sniper was king of no man's land. But as dusk turned to deep night and the shadows stretched across the shattered landscapes, an ominous shift occurred. The wide visual field that allowed telescopic optics to thrive evaporated into total pitch blackness, and into that darkness stepped an enemy whose entire military philosophy was built upon mastering the night. The British Army did not view the night as a time to rest, refit, or cower in dugout shelters. Rooted in the brutal lessons of the First World War and honed in the unforgiving raiding doctrine of the Commandos and airborne regiments, British tactical doctrine treated the darkness as a friend. While German forces generally preferred organized, daylight combined arms maneuvers supported by armor and heavy artillery, British infantry doctrine placed an extraordinary emphasis on aggressive night patrolling. These were not mere defensive listening posts sent out to guard the perimeter. They were active, highly lethal offensive incursions designed to inflict casualties, gather intelligence, destroy heavy weapon nests, and above all, dominate the psychological space of no man's land when visibility fell to zero. When a British patrol moved out into the dark, they stripped away everything that rattled, shined, or betrayed their presence. Buttons were taped down, weapons were blackened with soot or mud, and heavy boots were swapped for soft rubber-soled canvas shoes or woolen socks pulled over leather soles. They carried Tommy guns, Lee Enfield rifles, Fairbairn-Sykes fighting knives, and pocketfuls of Mills bomb grenades. To the German soldier sitting in a forward trench or hidden in a sniper hide, the night was no longer a sanctuary. It was a realm belonging to invisible shadows that moved without a sound. This stark difference in night fighting doctrine exposed a fatal vulnerability in the German sniper's operational strategy. A sniper's survival depends entirely on distance and visual identification. Fitted with magnification optics designed for daylight engagement, a scope becomes useless at night, restricting the shooter's field of view to a blurry, light-starved tube. To operate at night, a sniper was forced to rely on raw human senses, hearing, spatial awareness, and close-quarters combat skill. But while the German marksman was trained primarily as a distant hunter, British night patrols were trained as relentless pack hunters, operating in tightly coordinated groups designed to surround, isolate, and eradicate isolated enemy pockets before an alarm could even be raised.
When British patrols crept through no man's land, they utilized complex, highly rehearsed movement patterns. Moving in absolute silence, stopping every few meters to listen to the wind, they actively hunted for the subtle signs of a German sniper hide, the faint smell of tobacco smoke, the quiet shift of a boot's heels against gravel, or the soft metallic click of a bolt-action rifle being checked. Once a British patrol detected an isolated enemy position, they did not engage at long range. They closed the distance silently, using terrain contours and absolute stealth until they were within meters of their target. For a sniper trapped in a crawl space or a dugout hole with a long-barreled rifle, an enemy appearing suddenly at arm's length was a death sentence. German combat logs from the Western Front reflect an increasing awareness of this terrifying dynamic. Reports from Normandy to the Ardennes noted that sending single snipers or small two-man teams into forward positions overnight was becoming a suicidal endeavor. British patrols were not merely crossing the lines to gather intelligence, they were actively clearing out the forward German positions with cold, methodical efficiency. The psychological toll on the sniper corps was immediate and profound. The very shadows that had once offered cover to the sniper were now populated by an enemy that moved like ghosts and struck with lethal close-quarters weapons. By late 1944, German field commanders began issuing explicit warnings regarding night shifts for forward observers and marksmen. Snipers were advised to pull back to the main defensive lines before night fell, or risk being cut off and neutralized by aggressive British close combat units. The hunter had officially become the hunted, and the dark belonged entirely to the British patrol.
While British stealth tactics set the trap, it was their specialized arsenal that made night encounters an absolute death sentence for German snipers. In the disorienting darkness of close-quarters combat, the long-barreled bolt-action Kar-98K rifle, the standard weapon of the German sniper, turned from a deadly precision tool into a cumbersome liability. A German marksman cornered in his hide could fire a single round before needing to manually work the bolt, giving away his position with a blinding muzzle flash. Against this, British night patrols unleashed a devastating wall of fire, led by a weapon that became synonymous with short-range devastation, the Thompson submachine gun, known to soldiers as the Tommy gun. Chambered in heavy .45 ACP, the Thompson fired massive, high stopping power bullets at a rate of over 600 rounds per minute. When a British patrol stumbled upon a German sniper position in the dark, there was no long-distance exchange of fire. The encounter was instantaneous, violent, and overwhelming. The heavy lead slug of a .45 round possessed immense kinetic energy, capable of punching through foliage, wooden dugouts, and heavy winter coats, instantly stopping a target in its tracks. German survivors of night raids described the sheer noise of a Thompson salvo in the dark as deafening, completely shattering the quiet of the night and leaving anyone caught in its path with zero time to react or swing a long rifle around. Complementing the heavy firepower of the Tommy gun was the ubiquitous Sten submachine gun. Cheap, lightweight, and crudely effective, the Sten fired 9mm parabellum rounds from a side-mounted magazine. While often criticized for its cheap construction in open daylight warfare, the Sten was a nightmare in the pitch-black chaos of a night patrol encounter. Its compact, simple frame allowed a British soldier to maneuver through thick brush or tight trenches with absolute ease. A sniper waiting in a camouflaged pit would often hear nothing until the metallic clack of a Sten Gun bolt closing was followed immediately by a rapid burst of fire at point-blank range. Yet, firepower was only half of the equation. Stealth was what allowed British troops to get close enough to use it. For absolute silent kills, British patrols carried a weapon that struck a deep, primal terror into German troops, the Fairbairn-Sykes fighting knife. Designed specifically for silent elimination by close combat experts, this double-edged stiletto was balanced to pierce deep into vital organs without making a sound. A sniper caught off guard would not even have time to reach for his sidearm before an unseen assailant neutralized him from behind. German after-action reports frequently documented discovered outpost positions where sentries and marksmen had been eliminated silently without a single gunshot being fired.
Beyond small arms and silent weapons, the British patrol carried an asset that could turn a hidden sniper's cover into an inescapable inferno in a matter of seconds: the Mills bomb hand grenade. Officially designated the number 36 Mk1, this cast-iron fragmentation grenade was designed with a deeply notched exterior, often referred to as a pineapple, engineered to break into lethal serrated shrapnel upon detonation. When a British patrol identified the general vicinity of a sniper hide or suspected foxhole, they did not waste time trying to clear it by hand. A pair of Mills bombs tossed silently over the rim of a trench or into a bush would detonate after a brief 4-second fuse, filling the enclosed space with violent shock waves and razor-sharp metal fragments. The psychological impact of these combined weapons tore at the nerves of even the most hardened German veterans. German combat diaries from the Italian and Western European campaigns frequently refer to the sheer, unpredictable brutality of British night sweeps. One captured German infantry officer from the 91st Infantry Division later recounted during interrogation, "During the day, we watched the roads and picked off their officers, but once the light faded, the Tommies owned the grass. You would hear a twig snap, and before you could raise your rifle, the dark was full of machine gun fire and grenades." The knowledge that British patrols were roaming the dark, armed with weapons specifically chosen for short-range slaughter, stripped away the sniper's greatest psychological advantage, his feeling of invisible invincibility. This lethal combination of silent approach and instant, overwhelming firepower forced a total tactical shift among Axis marksmen. A sniper who fired his weapon at night instantly revealed his position via the massive white muzzle flash of his rifle, inviting a rain of submachine gun bursts and fragmentation grenades within seconds. The risk was simply too high and the return too low. What started as individual caution quickly spread through the ranks as an unwritten law of survival. When the sun goes down, pull back,
stay quiet, and leave the night to the British. The total dominance of the night by British patrols reshaped the dynamics of no man's land across the European theatre. What began as local tactical friction quickly evolved into a severe systemic crisis for the Wehrmacht's sniper doctrine. German marksmen, trained to be master predators of the battlefield, found themselves stripped of their primary defenses: distance, optical superiority, and visual situational awareness. The relentless, aggressive nature of British nocturnal raiding forced German high command to confront a bitter reality. Their individual long-range specialists were being systematically hunted down and eliminated by fast-moving, heavily armed British combat groups. By late 1944, this tactical reality led to a formal shift in how Axis forces deployed their snipers on the Western Front. Field directives increasingly advised marksmen to abandon forward hide sites before twilight, withdrawing into the main battle line alongside standard infantry platoons. The practice of leaving solitary snipers in forward positions overnight was largely abandoned, not out of tactical preference, but out of sheer necessity for survival. This strategic retreat created a vacuum in no man's land every single night, giving Allied forces complete freedom of movement to conduct reconnaissance, clear minefields, lay wire, and position forward artillery observers completely unhindered by long-range precision fire. The psychological toll on German troop morale was immense. Snipers who had spent the day inflicting heavy casualties on Allied ranks spent their nights listening in sheer terror to the soft, rhythmic rustle of the grass outside their bunkers. The knowledge that a British patrol could be silently surrounding their position at any given moment eroded the nerves of even the most battle-hardened veterans. Axis tactical post-mortem reports repeatedly noted the disparity in night combat proficiency, highlighting the British soldiers' superior fieldcraft, silent discipline, and ruthless efficiency in close-quarters engagements. The German army, despite its technological prowess and formidable armor, had completely lost control of the dark. Ultimately, the failure of German snipers to adapt to British night patrols highlighted a crucial flaw in Axis doctrine: an over-reliance on individual skill and technical equipment over flexible, team-based tactical aggression. While the German sniper remained a terrifying force under the light of the sun, British ingenuity, stealth, and aggressive night doctrine ensured that as soon as the sun went down, the hunter became the hunted. For the German soldier cowering in the dark, it wasn't just the guns, planes, or tanks that were terrifying, it was the Allied ingenuity they could never predict.